I kind of stole my own thunder in the beginning of our time together, Daniel. And it was really from a mentor of mine from mid 90s. He said to me, make sure you're always running towards something and not away from something. And that just changes the whole dynamic of how a decision is going to be made. I mean, you're spot on to be reminded of the employee owns the process, and it's their career. Nobody cares about their career more than they do. And when we do this session with managers, their shoulders are up here because it's so stressful for them to think about telling their employees what they should do next. That's incredibly stressful to have that weight on their shoulders, that they are the ones that are supposed to advise their team on what they should do next. And what we've done is we've said, remove that weight. That weight is gone. That is not your job as a manager. The employee has to figure it out. And then the manager coaches, advises, connects, supports, sponsors, gives feedback, whatever that looks like. And so the manager's shoulders are up here. And by the end of the session, they're down here because they're like, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to figure this out for everybody, because I got to figure it out for myself, by the way.
There is that interesting assumption we put on ourselves that we have to have the right answers all the time. And for us to be more informed, to help us recognize, wait a minute, we may not need the right answers in the way that we think. It might be a little different.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. I've not seen this question yet, but I think this is often one that we will think about as a concern. And the question is, so what if we talk about career development and we have conversations and then they leave? That's not in my best interest. I'm just helping them get ready for another gig somewhere else. Why should I do it? And I'm being a little purposefully, extreme in this, but that's a legitimate concern. As you're hearing this, Taura, how do you respond to that?
Well, I think there's a saying that says, what if you don't invest and they stay, or whatever, So, I mean, it kind of goes both ways. But when I was a full-time, head of career development for an executive MBA program, I had a sponsor of someone in that program ask me, why would you provide career coaching to my executive when I'm paying for them to attend this MBA program? I mean, they were fully sponsored by the company. And my response was, I'm not coaching them to leave. I'm preparing them and coaching them to stay. And ultimately, that leader was promoted to a vice president, actually a global role. And he hadn't updated his resume for 15 years. He hadn't, interviewed competitively for 15 years. And so by investing in his career development, it allowed him to take on a senior level role at that company, whereas otherwise, he may not have had the confidence to go for it. He may not have been, had the presence to show up like an external executive candidate would. So for me, the risk reward, it's a no-brainer. The reward definitely outweighs any risk. But people think LinkedIn is a job search site. I'm on LinkedIn every day, and I'm definitely not searching for a job. So I view it as a networking site and a connecting site. So it's all your, frame of mind and how you're viewing things.
That's a great one. And again, as there are other questions, please, for our listeners, please feel free to jot this in the Q&A. We'll be able to address it here on this topic, or frankly, any other topic that might be on your mind, as we all are striving to develop and strengthen people in various ways. I want to go back to something, Taura, you mentioned. You haven't said the word control specifically, but I keep thinking about that as one of those mindsets that sometimes the organization can get into. We need to control the conversation. We need to make sure they're not loose ends, or that there's different expectations that might be unfulfilled, or we can't give exactly what they want. All of these different well-intentioned, often, mindsets. How do you balance the level of control that the organization can have or let go of, and essentially what level of control the employee can have, especially within this topic of career management? How do you balance that sense of control? Or is that even the right mindset to even have these conversations well?
Well, I mean, I think this is where the HR strategy and the talent systems and the foundational support for career development is an important part of this process. I mean, at the end of the day, we're always going to have managers going rogue and doing things that might not necessarily be in line with the goals of the initiative. I think that's where HR business partners can really be that strategic arm and support for their managers to help them and guide them, ensure that they are utilizing these discussion guides or these resources that are being shared. I don't think anybody wants to make false promises. When I first started speaking on Lead Your Career with Stewart Leadership a number of years ago, someone in the audience said, so if somebody says I'm in marketing and I want to go over to finance, are you saying that we should just let them do that? Absolutely not. My guess is they don't want to go from marketing to finance. They haven't gone through the career planning process. So why don't we help them figure out what is it they really want, and then find a way to expose them to different things and support them. So this is not about entitlement. This isn't about employees, getting everything that is on their list of wishes. Nothing like that. This is just about intentionality, making strategic decisions, not getting wooed away from our companies for an extra $5,000. Doing the same job. So it's not a growth opportunity, same job. I'm just going to make a little more money. Let's just allow people to be more strategic in how they make these decisions.
Yeah, great points. Okay, so if an organization hearing all this, they say, all right, where do I start? Mm-hmm. What makes this sense? Well, what's the first thing that I need to do? How would you reply to an organization saying, for career development, where do we start with this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, naturally, I always want to just start because I'm so curious. I have a lot of questions, and I would just welcome like an introductory call to kind of dig in and learn what they're doing now, what's working, what isn't working. I do love to bring the Lead Your Career workshop to life. So whether that's piloting that for a group of emerging leaders that are hungry for this type of content, or maybe a group of HR professionals that want to upskill in the areas of career coaching. So I think just trying on this framework to see how it might fit with your company is a really easy way to get started. And it just opens up the conversation to explore what may work, what might not work, what's the right timing for a company, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's well. And the other question I have for you is, there are so many tools that you have in your toolbox related to career development.
Right.
What's the one tool that you're like, yes, please, I emphasize this as much as possible. What's the one tool that folks should use to best help develop their career, at least to start it out with?
Okay, well, Daniel, you're kind of setting me up here because I want to mention the Lead Your Career workbook, only because I'll share with you my passion around this. Not everybody can afford a career coach. Not every company offers career development or career advice or guidance or things like that. So a year ago, about a year and a half ago, I just became very passionate about creating a self-directed opportunity for people to work through this process. So for those on the call, you may not know this, but my undergrad was in finance. So, I mean, I'm very analytical, I'm very process-oriented. So for a decade, I was learning from 15 to 20 experts in the career space, from all over on personal branding and resumes and career planning and you name it. And I the 10,000 hours is probably real. And this system, this Lead Your Career system, curated all of that insight into a step-by-step guide and process in a self-directed way. And so for somebody who's really figuring out that career exploration, I feel like that's a one-stop shop that curated 10,000 hours of content. For other areas, like if somebody's focused on a job search, that's a different resource. If somebody's really wants to dig into revamping their internal resume or their resume in general, I've got a resume resource. So I've got little onesie, twosie resources here and there. But the workbook really was intended to curate this into a process that can be easily followed by anyone.
That's fantastic. And it sounds like they can go to, where can they find this workbook, by the way?
Well, the easiest thing to remember is leadyourcareer.com. Yeah. So we've made that easily accessible just for those people that are really needing something quick.
Okay, last question for you, Taura, unless there are other questions here. Last question is, what is the best piece of advice? What is the best piece of advice that you would give to others as they're navigating and building their careers? What is, you've given so much advice, you've heard so much advice. What is one that really stands out to you that you would give to help people manage and grow their careers?
Well, I kind of stole my own thunder in the beginning of our time together, Daniel. And it was really from a mentor of mine from mid-90s. He said to me, make sure you're always running towards something and not away from something. And that just changes the whole dynamic of how a decision is going to be made.